I didn't know much about spiritual warfare when I was growing up. And even as I was dealing with things in my like mid-20s, right before I came to the Lord, I didn't really know what was happening. I just felt, you know how people are like, oh, like there's bad spirits. And then like, no, there's demonic spirits. They're here, they're real. And I didn't know how to really deal with any of that, right? So basically, I remember there was a time where the Lord was like, get off social media. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna keep mindlessly scrolling, whatever. And it was like, get off social media. And I was like, no, I'm still gonna do whatever I want. And I'm like scrolling through social media. And then I seen something that triggered me. And it was like one of the things that constantly triggered me. And that's why I told you to get off social media. So I turned off my phone. I have all my lights off. And I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm yours. I don't really want to worship. I really don't want to talk to you right now. You know, I'm not in a mood for anything. So I just put worship music on and I was just standing there letting the worship music play. And then I would say after like 30 minutes, I started finally getting into it and I started like freely worshiping, pressing in, praying. And then suddenly I hear, do not be afraid. And I was like, what? Like I heard it so tangibly and it's like, don't be afraid. Do not cower. And I was like, I don't know. That was like a warning. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do I do right now? And suddenly my dog gets up from sleeping. He starts slamming his bowls and his food all over the floor. The people upstairs are going at it. They're fighting, throwing furniture, like things are going nuts. My worship music stops playing and I feel like something's in the room with me. And I was like, oh no. And I turn around and the Lord's like, do not be afraid. And so I felt like I was surrounded by just like complete darkness, like something that I normally would cower to. I felt bold and I was like, wait a minute, this is not where you belong. Like this is the Lord's house. And so I prayed loud. I'm screaming. I'm telling it to get out because like this is the Lord's dwelling place. And internally, I wanted to cower. Internally, because it's so consuming, it's so dark, it's so tangible that I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want any part of this like at all. Like just go away and leave me alone, you know? Like I don't want any problems. But I prayed in the authority that the Lord gave me, right? And he gave me that boldness to be able to pray and get whatever was in my place out. And I kid you not, after I don't know how much time, maybe like 20 minutes of praying, of screaming around my house, my dog suddenly lays down. The people upstairs are quiet and the worship music starts again. And I was just like, what just happened? And he reminded me, he was like, you've been praying for boldness. And you've been praying for like your future self so that like nothing can make you, you know, like tremble, nothing can shake you. Well, I'm helping you become that person by doing these little things, by allowing certain things to come into your house. But you have to remember that they have to ask me permission before they are allowed to do anything to you. So they can't touch you. They have no authority. You have the authority. And you tell them to get out. And I'm like, okay. Like he's told me that he's preparing me for the future. And this is why I say what I say, is because Jesus told Peter, the devil has asked to sift you. He's asked me permission to sift you. But I am praying for you so that you get strengthened by this and then you go off, right? And you teach others, you tell others about what I've done, right? So like, basically Jesus is like, hey, like this is about to happen, but they have to ask me permission because I have authority. They can't do anything to you, right? But I'm doing this so that you can gain all the strength that you need so that you can strengthen others. And so like, I feel like that's why he's allowed me to experience some things that a lot of people either haven't experienced or they don't talk about. And I've seen that even being open about these stories and dealing with like demonic spirits, I've been able to help people who have not spoken a word about it, but have dealt with it. But they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say because nobody else has brought it up. And I've had that last month. I was just casually telling her, because she's new to church and she's a new believer and she's experienced those things. And I didn't know until after I was just open about things that I've experienced. And she's like, are you kidding? She's like, I've dealt with these things, but I don't know how to bring them up. Nobody ever brings them up. And I was like, that's an issue. We should always be open about God's work. And even if it's controversial, even if people don't believe you, the truth is still the truth, right? People don't believe the Bible, but it's still the truth. It's God's living word. So whether they believe it or not, it doesn't mean that it's not true. And so I believe that he's allowed me to experience these things and talk to other people that need to hear it so that they can be strengthened. She didn't know about the whole Jesus talking to Peter and saying like the devil wants to sift you. He's asked me permission to sift you to be strengthened. She didn't understand that whatever she's going through is going to strengthen her so that she can strengthen the next person. We are going through things specifically for that. He wants us to pour into other people. He wants us to tell our experience to other people. He wants people to be strengthened by that, right? Because there will be a time we will be persecuted and we need to stand in boldness. We need to stand in truth and we can't be shaken. And this is a way to basically prepare. So it's like, if we can't stand against this, then imagine how much more when we are being persecuted. So I know it's controversial, but in the Bible, it does talk about that. And when he did with Job too. Mm-hmm. I mean, the devil has to ask permission. He has no authority over anybody. They can only go so far. And the Lord will say when enough is enough. People just kind of graze through those stories or they don't really understand it very well. And I challenge people to kind of really study into that. Really look into it and see what the Bible meant. So do a study on things like that so that you can better understand, instead of just kind of dismissing it. I don't want to think about things like this. I don't want to deal with any of that because it makes them feel uncomfortable. Right. But we need to grow. You can't stay where you're at in comfort, just blindly dismissing certain things that are very real, very real.
I used to be bothered by that verse because Jesus is like, yeah, Peter, the devil desires you. I'm praying for you.
Yeah, it's good luck.
Right. And I'm like, Jesus, I don't need you to tell me you're praying for me. I need you to tell me you're going to come through.
Yeah, right.
But what you're saying is totally correct. Because when you look at the rest of Peter's life, he was definitely challenged by his own sin, by the world around him. But he wound up dying on an upside down cross because all those things prepared him to endure. Right. Because at first he wasn't an endurer like that. No. We're all Peter in a certain way. We're we run from scary things. We're oh no, don't kill me. I don't know who Jesus is. We're all like that at one point or another. But again, he was merciful towards Peter. He forgave Peter. He showed him endless love. And still look at what the things that Peter did for the kingdom. Despite denying him 3 times, right? He walked with him for 3 years, still denied him, and was still used. So there's so much mercy, so much forgiveness, so much love. And the Lord really kept pouring into Peter, kept using Peter as a vessel. No matter how jacked up we are, no matter what we do or what we say, that mercy still comes. Right? Even if we feel the Lord has walked away, that's not what he's done. He's waiting for us to really dig deeper into to seek him deeper. Sometimes we're still at the surface level and we're well, we feel like you've left us. And he's I'm here. You just need to dig a little deeper because you're still in the shallow part and I'm trying to take you somewhere else now, And so Peter needed to learn all of those lessons and he needed to go through everything that he needed to go through so that he can contribute like he did to the kingdom. And he made a huge impact. Imagine us. He wants to use us like he used Peter. And we're no better. Some of us are a little worse than Peter, but he still wants to use us. We're still those vessels. When you've known Christ and before you knew Christ, thinking about those things for real, how do you feel knowing that God is still willing to use you and is still willing to be there with you even though you've done all of those things?
To be honest, it still seems unbelievable. I'm just thankful that I am forgiven. I'm thankful that he will complete his work in me, right? He's not going to just kind of reveal himself to you and be like, all right, figure life out. No, he's constantly working within, constantly helping, setting us free from things. And we're always going to be like a work in progress until we're with him and complete with him. But I would say that I'm just happy that he didn't turn his back on me. Because that's a thought where it's like, well, my time has passed. I will never get a chance again to be able to serve the Lord because I just rejected him so much. It's like, no, that's not a thing with him, which is amazing, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm just in awe because I would love to be like that. I would love to model after him. It's impossible because we're just mere humans, we can't do things like that, but we can always be in surrender and try to model after him and ask him to help us in those areas, to love people who are really hard to love, like ourselves,
Right.
where we don't feel like we're deserving, but he says we are.
What we learned from Karina's testimony is how understanding the character of God can lead us to a place of security. It helps us understand that we are never too gone for God to pursue us. Exactly. We see Karina pretty much become this person who is so in love with God and sees that he's a relentless pursuer of his children, and he's redeeming those who cannot redeem themselves. Considering that she started out as a person who thought that God was a tyrant who didn't like anything, I think the transformation is clear that her fear of God not caring about her, not being there for her, overtaken. And I pray that your fears of God not being there for you are confronted with the truth, and that you don't allow the lie of the enemy to fester in your head in such a way to keep you from the God who is the lover of your soul. All right, before I start preaching the sermon, I see y'all in episode 2. Stay at his feet. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And then secondly, go to abbaandme.com. Check out our fashion line and all of our products that encourage intimacy with God and the well-being of his people.